We're building a tiny home that we can just pick up and carry on the back of our work truck so we can take home anywhere. This dream all started when the van I used to sleep in became more of a mobile shed. And with our renovation projects only getting bigger, we decided now is about time for an upgrade. Because our next project involves us attempting to renovate an abandoned Italian barn, whilst living in our new tiny home and using our old truck for materials. But that's the dream. The reality?
It is currently 2.8 degrees out here. My hands are going purple.
And the English weather is trying its best to stop us at every turn.
In the drenching rain.
So in this episode, we are building a tiny home that is fit to survive the coldest of the English winter and can withstand the hottest of the Italian summer. And being a metal box, this is one of the most important jobs of them all. And today is the last day that our tiny home is going to be echoey, silver, reflective. In a minute, it's going to be like one giant sponge pop. Right, so what's the plan?
Spray the whole lot.
Today is the day that we spray foam insulate our whole entire container, turning what we know as a cold metal box into a warm home. But before we do any spraying, it's time to get suited and booted because this stuff you don't want to be breathing in.
We're ready.
And the next second, the guys got straight to spraying. And I can't tell you how excited we are now this process is beginning. Building this tiny home in the freezing cold isn't the nicest of tasks. It's so bad that outside the container where we're spraying, Toby's having to cuddle insulation to keep warm.
Oh, it's comfy.
But that problem isn't going to be around much longer because this insulation is Parker. It may not be the cheapest option, but it's the quickest and the best. And as you know, we're planning to take this tiny home all the way to Italy, so we need to make sure that this stays cool inside. And now that is the first half of the spraying done, and that's called a miscoat.
I'm gonna have a look inside. That looks sick.
Oh, that's warm in here.
That is hot. There's so much home here. It's like you painted the wall.
So this is the halfway point of the insulation. What they've done is just sprayed it absolutely everywhere, and that's called a flash coat. As you guys can see from here, it's very, very thin on there. Even though it's already made a massive difference, it's about to get better. And now the flash coat has had time to set and prep to the walls. We could run around and do the satisfying bit. In the floor and ceiling, we're going for 50mm of insulation. This is super thick and is definitely enough to withstand the coldest temperatures in the UK, and with the help of a small aircon unit, be perfect for the Italian summers.
Right, so just to give you a bit of context, it is currently 2.8 degrees out here, and if I shoot this inside, it's 20 degrees inside there, which is crazy. That insulation is so crazy.
And it wasn't even done yet. The last place for us to insulate was actually the bed area. And as we all know, this is the most important. Everybody hates being either freezing cold or boiling hot when in bed. So we're going full ham, and as you can see in just the ceiling area, we've actually got a skylight which we'll be cutting out later on in this video.
And we're done.
And just like that, the insulation was done, and seeing Insulation Man shows how warm this thing is.
Is that hot?
You're literally dripping.
That was hard in that little bit in there, though.
He was like doing army crawls and everything, roly-polies, spraying at the same time.
Meanwhile, we're freezing out here. My hands are going purple.
And from what it was this morning when it was a cold metal box to now is already a huge, massive transformation. And our friends over at Foam Insulation's done this whole thing for free for us. They are genuinely such nice guys, and if you guys want any insulating done yourself, make sure you hit them up. And now our tiny home is insulated, it's time for us to admire it.
Check this place out. Looks alien. Literally alien. From how this looked before with all the aluminium and stuff, it's so wild that this is now just insulated and yellow and bright and sunny.
And guys, just look at how covered this building now is. So the reason why this foam's so good is because, like I said, it gets in every nook and cranny, and there is now no chance for any condensation in this bad boy. It's just sick.
Inside a marshmallow.
But the most exciting thing is that now the installation's done, that means that the home can start being built and brought to life.
Oh yeah.
And the next day, it was time for us to drive our tiny home back for the first time. It felt unbelievable to be on the road, and surprisingly, since doing the repairs ourselves, this thing drove perfectly fine.
This tipper is so sick.
And to our surprise, it cruised perfectly at 70 miles per hour. And before we knew it, we was back home at our next location. And this is crazy exciting.
Wow. And welcome to Idiot HQ in here. This is so sick. This is a warehouse that we've rented so that we can carry on with the Tipper Tiny Home project without being freezing cold and in the snow.
However, to reap the rewards of working in the warehouse, first, we had to try and get our tiny home in. And this proved not to be easy. Now, the one biggest problem is we've not even seen how this thing actually tips up yet. In the last episode, we obviously made the tipper function work where we lift it on. And now, we need to try and get this thing back off using the winch and gravity of the tipper bed. So like last time, we temporarily connected the electrics and started lifting the tiny home up with the buttons.
And this thing tipped up looks ridiculous. And I can't believe this is about to come off.
And surprisingly, being our first time tipping the home off, we felt pretty confident. But that's mainly because it was surprisingly smooth. Maybe a little bit too smooth.
All right.
It's slopey, isn't it?
A bit slopey.
But the second the back of the tiny home touched the ground, we got stuck. And the only way for us to release this was to drive the tipper forward, while simultaneously releasing the winch.
I mean, a little bit rough, but we got touchdown on a Tipper Tiny Home. That was pretty smooth, I think.
But after watching back the footage, maybe it wasn't the smoothest. However, we inspected everything and it was all pretty good. Okay, so then we're going to build it here.
Perfect. In the rain.
How do we now get that in there? Because we ain't picking that up.
Good idea. I found some old scaffold poles lying around and I was going to attempt to push our tiny home inside the warehouse. And fingers crossed it worked.
It's rolling!
Sometimes I question my genius. At this point, you're probably wondering, why didn't we just build the home on rollers? And that's because in future, we're not going to be putting this home where we can't get the tipper into. And if we was to install it on some mud or grass, the rollers will just get clogged with dirt. And that same goes for the actual tipper bed itself. But it's okay because our tiny home ended up getting into the warehouse all right.
Yay!
We're winning! This is how this thing is going to function most of the time.
Yeah.
When it's in like a beautiful grassy area, tiny home, you walk out, sit onto the floor.
Yeah, this is sick.
This is mainly the main priority behind this tiny home. The tipper is purely just for transport.
And now, this might seem stupid, but it's just genius. We now have a tipper, which we can pick up all the materials to build the tiny home with.
She's taking a beating.
Did someone grease that and not tell us?
Look at it in there.
Oh,
Look at it. Alright, so now all that kerfuffle is sorted out and you guys have seen the warehouse that we're working in, we can now start to tackle the tiny home once again, and we're moving straight on to something super exciting.
Window time!
Inside our tiny home, we're going to be having 3 windows. One in the kitchen area, one by the seating area, and one as a skylight above the main bed. And cutting the first one out makes such a difference.
I just imagine it now, looking out onto Italy. It'll be so nice.
Whilst you're doing the washing up.
Why is that, Josh?
Because that's where the sink's going to be.
Right.
And we are actually just about to see how the window actually fits into our home. But before we can do that, we finished cutting up the edges, and Maddie went around with a scraper and scraped it all clean. And once everything was removed and out of the way, we could put the window in place and see how it was gonna look.
That looks good.
Look at that! #1 window! Oh, look at that! That looks sick!
Yeah,
I love the way it opens up.
It's
Yeah,
really
'cause
weird.
even if it's raining, like you can still have it open.
Yeah, that's nice. However, there is a problem with these windows. We can't actually install this window yet because next week we have got something super exciting which we're already working on behind the scenes.
Now, you might have noticed in all the previous thumbnails of this series, this house has been wrapped in like some kind of brick texture. And that's because that's been the plan all along. But we've got something even more exciting planned, and it relates to the Italy project.
This right here is our current tiny home. And this right here is the Italian barn we bought. And we've had the perfect idea to combine the two. Meaning the outside of our tiny home is going to be similar to the barn, and the inside's going to be designed Italian themed too.
So we're gonna have ourselves a tiny Italian home, which is super sick. And for that, we actually need to wrap this in some kind of Italian stone.
But that won't be until next episode. For now, our job is to prep the outside, ready for the wrap to go on and make things smooth next week. And that process starts with cutting the windows out. And even more exciting, the skylight hole. Which is where, when we're laying in bed, we were to look up at the stars and hopefully not see rain. But cutting this out proved to be a little bit difficult. Our saw kept getting stuck on the metal, so we pushed it with our heads. Alright!
Now, there's a super special reason we're so excited to have this skylight installed, and that's because not only does it add more light in here, but this is also going to act as access up to the roof, where we plan to actually put a seating area up here and looking out into the Italian mountains.
It's a nice view, isn't it?
It'll be better when we're in Italy.
I like the light.
And since our most recent addition of the skylight and the 2 brand new pucker windows, the outside of our tiny home is officially ready to get wrapped. But as I mentioned earlier, that's happening in the next week's episode. For now, it's time to draw our attention back inside our tiny home and start laying the floor.
So we need to expose all of these beams so we can lay the floor of our tiny home.
Woohoo! You heard us right, we're now installing the floor of our tiny home. I can't believe it feels like things are happening so quick, but this is actually just the next step. But before we get too carried away with floor plans, we have to scratch all the foam back. And the insulation boys were so generous with the foam, it even went past the joists in some areas.
We are now halfway through. We've exposed all the metal joists. However, the foam goes further than that because, as you can see, the foam in the middle is higher than the metal joist itself.
So we got straight to cutting that back. And even though this was quite boring and mundane, we were still very excited. Because to build our own tiny home that we can take anywhere with us has been a dream of ours for quite some time.
I live in the back of a van.
And as you can see, our last couple of setups had no insulation at all. So to have a little bit too much this time is just a luxury that we cannot wait to live in. But this process was very messy. So we didn't really have a choice but to order a skip. And when it turned up, we had a problem. The driver just plonked it where he pleased.
That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Delivery drivers come, drop the skip off, which is a good thing.
But it's blocking in our tipper and kind of right in the way of driving in there as well. It's just a giant heavy thing that we can't move.
And it's so ugly.
So we're going to try and drag this thing out of the way using some rope and Josh's van.
Oh, we tied it all the way to my winch point. So after the rope was tied, we tried to reverse the van. But the skip wasn't going anywhere.
Whoa. Feels like that's about to slingshot into me.
Really?
Yeah, that's not going to work. Oh, I've got an idea.
What? That was until Toby had a mega idea. On the back of the truck is the winch point we've installed, and that's what picks the tiny home up. And do you remember when I said these are the best things in the world? After today, I definitely mean it. Oh, it's like it's made for it. The skip had no chance to withstand this. And once we got it close enough to the desired location, we could push it with our hands the rest of the way.
Yay! That's a better base for
It would have
it.
been better if we just done it straight away. And with our newfound skip at its desired location, it didn't take long for us to start filling it up. And with the skip filling up, the tiny home was getting clearer. And we was finally ready to start boarding our tiny home.
And the next stage to our tiny home build is putting down the floorboards. Goodbye, floor. Yeah.
That's nice.
This is going to be nice.
Yo, doesn't it feel already more like a house?
Instantly.
It feels like it's coming together now.
It feels nuts,
It's
doesn't it?
really sick.
Now, to make sure that we install this properly is very important for the foundations of our home. This is where the tiny home build begins, I guess. And we would hate to have some squeaky floorboards. So to help us prevent that, we are doing a bead of no more nails and also screwing it down.
So good. That's nice.
That's so easy.
And just to make sure that our plan worked, once we screwed the first board down, we gave it a quick test.
Give it a squeak test.
0 squeak. And with our first non-squeaky board, it was time to start measuring up the rest. Because we were just too excited to get this whole floor done. Because the second the floor's down is the second we can really get the feel for the place and start figuring out where we're gonna put things in our tiny home. And with the floor now done, the transformation is already there.
It's like
an actual house.
Can't believe what a difference a bit of tree makes.
It's mad. It's literally mad. Hello, boards, and hello, floor.
But after I laid on the floor, I realised we might as well board the bed area too. But up here's gonna be a little bit different. Before we lay the boards down, we've got to run around with this insulation tape on all the bare metal. This is because heat rises and up here's pretty high and will get pretty hot. So by laying this down, there's not gonna be any condensation and things are gonna be good. And just like the floor at the bottom, we could now cut it to size. And putting these bed boards in was literally just surreal. It was literally just 1 month ago we were dreaming of the day we could sleep above the cab in our tipper truck. And right now, we were only one board away. And with that now added, the bed area was finally done.
This bed literally feels sweet as a nut. Like, oh my god. This is massive. Crazy. And believe it or not, it's the first bed out of 2 in this tiny home. We'll get on that a little bit later on in the series. This is sick and flipping amazing, but now there is something else we need to do, and that is start to tackle the walls.
So now that the floor is all installed in this place and the overbed area looks sick, we're ready to start working on the walls of the tiny home. And right now, there's nothing to fix anything to because it's all covered in foam. So, we've got an idea.
Our plan is to notch out a piece of the foam back to a bare metal and install a batten.
Oh yeah.
Like a glove.
That's gonna be nice.
This was going to give us so many options to fix to, and also help us keep as much insulation as we physically can. However, the more we were cutting out, the slower we realised this was. We had to come up with a different solution.
What we found, Sloby?
Oh, check this method out. See, this is something you can't teach. Pure experience. Oh! That took a bit much off.
Pure experience, he says. But because Toby was so certain that this was the way forward, he wanted to show us again.
It's quick.
And with our new quick method, we were off on our way, flying around. And we cannot believe how many battens there was to notch out. But as well as notching out for the battens, around the windows, we had to try and cut the foam back ready for them too. And once the foam was removed, we checked to see if it fit. And to our surprise, it looked pretty pucker. So we did the same for the other window, and then went back to the battening, which was our main priority to get finished by the end of the video.
And this is wall numero uno, and these things are so blinking solid. They are so good. And it's a good thing that they're solid because we are dreaming to hopefully and make this side of the house the kitchen area, and the fact these are so strong gives us so many good fixing points to fix our overhead storage too, our lower cabinets too. Yo, this is pucker. What a blinking upgrade, and it actually looks pretty good. And another benefit to doing this, which you've overlooked, is the gap behind the back makes it way easier to run our cables around and our plumbing. So idiots are very happy people right now.
Which was a good thing because we had a lot more notching out and battening to do. And whilst in the process, we went around the windows to all the exposed metal and covered it with this black tape. Once again, purely for condensation. And once one window was done, we went ahead and did the same for the other. And then, you guessed it, back to some more battening. What we're doing here is most of the prep work ready for the tiny home to start coming to life. So to keep us excited, all we're doing is thinking ahead and how good this tiny home's gonna look very soon.
And after all that, this place is really feeling like that mini home that we've all dreamed of. And it's the part of the build where things are gonna start changing very, very quickly. With this whole entire thing battened, it now means we're ready for electrics, plumbing, which means next episode we're gonna have to start figuring out the layout for this thing. I don't think we're ready for that.
I have no idea what we're doing. Like, this is so sick. What a good stage of the build to be at.
Yeah, this
It's
feels
so
nice.
exciting.
I can't tell you guys how exciting next week's episode is, but for now that's as far as we can get because remember in the last series where we converted our parents' house into their dream home?
Halfway through it, we built our brother his dream baby room. And that's because he was the first of us 4 boys to be having a baby. And over the course of the last couple of months, they've been getting closer and closer until very recently.
And right now, we're about to go see his baby for the very first time, which means we're now Uncle and Auntie Idiots, baby.
We're all gonna have a shower though.
Yeah, first.